Hello fellow gamers, RoboCharged here, and with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 right around the corner, I want to take one last look back at what made the first one so much fun to play. I should note, this video won't hold back on spoilers, so if you haven't completed KCD, but plan on doing so, just be forewarned. Now the first thing I really loved about this game is its approach to realism. There is an obvious commitment here to involve as much of it as possible, within reason, and I think the game struck a pretty good balance. This is really the first true medieval RPG I can think of, choosing to forego the fantasy and magical type elements that are unfortunately so deeply ingrained in the genre. There are no Disney-looking castles with orcs, elves, dragons, or wizards casting spells, which I found extremely refreshing. Some of the potions did kind of cross that line a bit, however, but all in all, this was the authentic medieval life simulator type game I had always wanted. Wearing a helmet with a visor actually reduces your field of vision. You need to eat and sleep. Food can spoil, and meat needs to be cooked. Clothes and people get dirty, armor and weapons are prone to wear and tear, requiring repairs, and it's even possible to bleed out and die if you don't apply bandages to a wound in time. Or you can injure your legs from fall damage, causing you to move slower. It also greatly helps to wear dark clothing and lose any noisy armor when utilizing a stealthy approach. Henry, our young protagonist, is in my opinion a much more relatable character than you'll find in most games. And putting yourself in the shoes of a common blacksmith's son, who doesn't have a clue how to fight or handle weapons, is certainly a fun challenge. He's just an immature boy who relies on his mother to patch him up after a fist fight with the village drunk, or has to answer to his father after getting into mischief with his friends. The journey you undertake from there to eventually becoming a respected knight among the nobles, winning tournaments, and striking fear into bandits really gives you an accomplished feeling at the end.
I'm proud of you, Henry.
And Henry experiences such immense loss right off the bat. You really feel that and get drawn into the character and his plight. Suddenly all alone, he has to grow up fast in a harsh, unforgiving world, but somehow manages to mainly keep a cheerful attitude and possesses both courage and determination. He's someone who's not only on a mission to survive, but to turn himself into a warrior, capable of avenging his loved one's murders. And he feels duty-bound to recover the stolen sword him and his father forged for their liege lord. Now that's a likable character with a quest a player can really get behind. Character progression is handled in a way that makes plenty of sense. The more you do something, the better at it you become. This applies to almost everything in the game, even just talking to people. There is a long list of combat and non-combat skills, and improving these skill levels, along with your character stats, unlocks a variety of perks for you to choose from as you go. The thing that really stands out to me is just how much your skill level's importance to the gameplay itself truly matters. When you start out, everything is a struggle and kind of feels clunky. You can barely manage to win a fist fight, pick a lock, or even read. But as you improve, you can actually feel the various gameplay mechanics becoming easier and more effective to perform in a sort of tangible way. The gameplay starts to feel smoother, and it's apparent that not only are you getting better at playing the game, but your character is getting better in the game at the same time as well. This is a game truly steeped in history, offering players a unique look into early 15th century life in Bohemia, not long before the Hussite Revolution takes place. Of course, the main character and his quests and storyline are fictional, but many actual historical figures are present or referenced throughout. And the backdrop setting for the story is also taken from actual historical events surrounding Wenceslas IV, King of Bohemia, and his half-brother Sigismund, King of Hungary. Plenty of actual locations and buildings have been faithfully researched and painstakingly replicated to recreate the places at the time as best as possible. Oftentimes in movies and games, the Middle Ages are portrayed with everything appearing dark and dingy, but here, You see castle interiors filled with colorful art and a vibrant culture that more accurately represents the time period. Also, HEMA techniques heavily influence the fighting in this game, which brings us next to combat. The approach this game takes with combat is quite nuanced, but without being too difficult to quickly grasp the basics. I like having the 5 different directions from which to aim your slash or stab attacks and blocks, and how stamina plays a large role and needs to be monitored while fighting. Beyond the basic attacks and blocks lies an in-depth system that includes master strikes, feints, perfect blocks, and numerous combinations to unlock and learn. The animations look and feel incredibly realistic since they researched and emulated medieval manuscripts. Armor is equipped in layers, and choosing the right weapon to be the most effective against it matters. Maces are generally better against plate armor, while swords are deadliest against light armor. And axes strike a balance, offering more of both blunt and slash damage, for instance. When it comes to the bow, archery is incredibly realistic and challenging. There is no reticle on screen, and the draw weight of the bow will cause your arm to sway around a bit as you try to aim. It feels great when you start to get the hang of it and manage to get arrows on target. This is the rare type of game where you aren't expected to easily rack up hundreds of kills, and where being even slightly outnumbered actually matters and feels like a big threat to your survival, especially early on. Up next, I want to talk about the game's incredibly immersive atmosphere, which features 16 square kilometers of medieval Bohemian countryside. This open world is breathtakingly beautiful and comes to life with amazing, almost photorealistic forests teeming with wildlife. There are also winding rivers, fields, mountains, and villages featuring castles and churches to explore. When making your way around, villagers will go about their daily routines that include various types of work, gathering water, and eating, or even visiting the church. At nighttime, everything becomes pitch black, with only the light from the moon and your torch to see by. Bandits await on secluded roads where they conduct ambushes on passers-by, and little touches like horse dung on the road or coming across various accident sites add to the feeling you get of being part of a living, breathing world. And all of this without having any load times for entering buildings or traveling over long distances is great as well. Also featured is an amazing original orchestrated soundtrack that plays along with great ambient sounds such as birds in the forest, or dogs barking, and villagers talking or singing a tune as they go about their day. When exploring such a great open world and its possibilities, it's important to feel like you have freedom. And thankfully, KCD offers you choices and allows for freedom of playstyle. Do you want to be good Henry, who's honorable and merciful as you build a reputation through helping others, gain respect and wealth the noble way? Or do you want to be bad Henry?
Mother of God, what are you doing, you wretch?
Who has no qualms about stealing or killing ruthlessly to get ahead. Or maybe you prefer to reside in more of a moral gray area and become a master thief who can pick pockets and locks, but avoids physically harming innocent people, even if it means seeing the inside of a jail cell sometimes. And if looking for a challenge, there is a hardcore mode that certainly will offer that. The choice is up to you and how you want to approach a playthrough. And when it comes to quests, and even just situations you encounter, there's usually more than one way to go about completing them as well. Here I beat this Black Peter character in the final round of the Rattay tournament, but it turns out he's a sore loser and waits to ambush me a short ways outside of town. The coward even has a poisoned sword and is tough to defeat in an unfair fight. So instead of riding right into his trap, I could elect to sneak along the river and around behind him, quietly and swiftly disposing of the problem without the need for a fight. When it comes to gameplay variety, it's important to provide players with enough different and engaging things to do in order to keep a game feeling fresh. And with all the story missions, side quests, and activities in this one, we have no shortage of that here. Whether you are hunting for wild game, scouting and clearing bandit camps, settling disputes, dealing with a plague outbreak, infiltrating a monastery undercover as a monk, playing dice in a tavern, being chased through the mines, completing an investigation by capturing a criminal, digging up buried treasure, or participating in a big battle or siege. They managed to mostly feel fun and interesting. And who can forget the memorable quest centered around a night of debauchery while hanging out with the village priest, only to have to give his sermon for him the following morning. You can also even take charge of rebuilding a village as the new bailiff, go on adventures with Hans Capon, or play as Teresa and see Henry from her point of view. This is a game that is certainly jam-packed with a wide variety of things to do. The main story portion of the game is told through over 5 hours worth of cinematic cutscenes, and they are well worth watching. Oftentimes, you get the feeling like you are viewing a movie, or even sort of in it, since you are often choosing from dialogue selections in between as you go. They look great, the voice acting is top-notch, and the plot is interesting and even mixes in a few twists and surprises, such as Henry finding out he was actually Sir Radzig's son all along, or the reveal of Sir Istvan Toth as the main antagonist. And there's also some nice touches, like reuniting with some familiar faces much later on in your adventures. There are many elements of a good story involved here. Tragedy, revenge, suspense, comic relief.
You can't make a squire of a peasant?
Why not? Someone made a priest of a pig.
Romance, action sequences, hated villains, and even a rivals turn friends story arc involving Henry and Hans Capon, which is one of my personal favorite parts. All that is missing is a satisfying ending, but hopefully we'll get that soon in the sequel. And last but not least is dedication. This game clearly was a labor of love for the developers at Warhorse Studios. At the time, they were a small team, but they believed in making this game despite publishers shying away from it, insisting the game was too niche, and that people want magic, wizards, and dragons. But they stuck with it, and I'm so glad they did, because not having those things is the #1 reason I like this game so much. They eventually raised the needed money through a private investor, and on Kickstarter in order to bring us the game. Post-release, there were quite a few bugs and glitches that they needed to continue to iron out through patches, but they managed to eventually do a solid job of that, and went on to add several DLCs as well. Alright, now that I've praised the game throughout this entire video, in closing, I want to at least mention that like any game, it certainly isn't without flaws. To name a few, some bugs clearly remain. Fast traveling at night can cause you to commit a crime since it doesn't bother to equip your torch. The mysterious pots of stew that are everywhere make it too easy to stay well fed for free. The lock-on mechanic can really be frustrating when dealing with multiple enemies in combat. Your archery skill doesn't level up while practicing at a shooting range. And polearms are so poorly implemented that they can't be stashed in your inventory or even on your horse. But I've played through it both on console and PC, and all things considered, it's one of my all-time favorite games. After 7 years and over 8 million copies sold, Kingdom Come Deliverance remains a unique and special gaming experience. And as of today, KCD 2 currently stands as the 15th most wishlisted game on Steam, and I, like so many others, can't wait to get my hands on it. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.
God be with you.